Welcome to Mentor Education's Student Information Session on the BSB60915 Advanced Diploma of Management, specialising in human resources. Joining us today, we have Chief Executive and Academic Officer Iona McKimmie. Iona, welcome.
Hi James, thank you. It's great to be here.
And the Head of our Educational Advice Team, Danielle O'Neill. Danielle, great to see you.
Thank you, James. You too. Hello, everybody.
Excellent. So the Advanced Diploma of Management, specialising in human resources, presents a number of advantages, particularly for those who are looking at getting into the human resources sector or even the business sector as a whole. Iona, I'm going to hand on over to you to talk to us a little bit about the course itself, provide a little bit of an overview and touch on some of the roles which human resources qualification would be beneficial and perhaps some of the outcomes that it would also provide.
Yeah, great James, thank you. The course itself is developed to introduce management concepts that relate to human resources management. And this is always a really specific and area of any business operations. And the human resources role is almost a pivotal role in an organisation. As a human resource manager or director, a person in that role is responsible for everything from employing staff to conflict resolution to creating diversity plans, ergonomic management plans, for example, how we use our workstations and things like that. Workforce planning, these types of tasks usually fall to these roles. So for people that are wanting to develop their knowledge and skill and either increase their employment opportunities or their current work opportunities, this course is ideal. The benefit for people that are working as coordinators and supervisors is that the course actually introduces a lot of newer concepts and deeper learning about workforce planning, for example, and job roles and job families and management of that, and organisational infrastructure to actually cope with different job families, which is also part of the human resources management process. So I think the other thing where the other area where this course is really valuable is for business owners, small business owners, entrepreneurs, people who are thinking about starting up their own consultancy, because it develops that deeper level of knowledge about, the human resources in an organisation, or the human capital, and how we actually manage that part of an organisation.
So certainly by the sounds of it, one thing that all businesses have in common, particularly as they begin to scale, is that human and that personnel element. So there really is advantage in picking up that skill set and that knowledge in being able to manage that aspect of a business. Irrespective of what industry you're in, whether it be technology or mining, retail, certainly, and these days, with a digital workspace and remote working, I think functions stemming from human resources are just as, if not more important than ever.
These are areas that we do look at in the course, and how to manage different types of teams. Every team, whether it be a project team or a sales team or a team of educators, for example, there's specific things that relate to those different types of teams. And then we place teams of people, because all organisations are made up of people. There's very few that are just sort of a computer in a room somewhere, isn't there? And managing people can be quite complex, and depending on whether we have multiple environments, multiple sites, whether we're a business that's part of a larger conglomerate, understanding and being able to take that understanding and put it into those different contexts is incredibly important, because human beings are businesses. Mm-hmm.
Very true. Now, digging a little bit deeper, let's have a look at some of the units that are covered in the course itself, and perhaps some of the reasons as to why they're there and why they're valuable in this current environment.
Well, I think as we've been talking about, strategic planning is incredibly important. As businesses change, as businesses grow, we need to be able to take a strategic approach. scalability is incredibly important. Profitability is incredibly important. So being able to develop strategy for human capital and human resources is very important. Dealing with change, the world has just gone through a large period of change. We've gone through a period of change in our workplaces. So being able to approach that change and make change a positive event for our workforce and support positive change as a positive event for a business is incredibly important. When we look at organisational development, we incorporate change and we incorporate planning and we incorporate the human factor, the human capital factor. Again, we need the right people in the right positions with a great skills bag to be able to carry an organisation through periods of change. Or we may actually have an organisation, for example, that has changed its production process, and we may actually need to reskill and redeploy some workers. So being able to manage change and manage innovation is a very valuable skill when we're working in human resources. And business planning. Business planning is, human resources and people are part of every business. So business planning is incredibly important. We live in a very diverse world where I remember reading something quite a long time ago where we actually have more than 3 people from every country in the world in Australia. So diversity for us and everywhere across the world, because we're now a global community, is incredibly important. And how to actually work with both diversity locally and diversity offshore as well. We need to be able to appreciate where we are and how to operate in a global capacity as far as a diverse workforce is concerned. Remote working and the change to working environments that's happened and will continue to happen is incredibly important. So we now will need to take an even wider approach to how we approach diversity within our workforces. We may have an employee in Hungary and an employee in Spain and an employee in Canada, and they all are influenced by the local influences around them. So managing diversity in an organisation, both internally and with our external and our remote workers, is incredibly important. I suppose the course actually brings together all of these things, and it helps us to actually develop the knowledge and the skill to actually manage that complexity that is all of those people in all of those places, and support an organisation's goals and strategy and implement that.
And I think you mentioned something, which is really important there, and this is this idea of human capital. And certainly it's one thing, all businesses should invest in. And there was a very famous interview and quote which came from Richard Branson, I believe, and it was, what happens if I invest in my people and my human capital and they leave my organisation, head to another? To which he simply replied, well, what if I don't invest in them and they stay? What sort of a negative impact is that going to have on the long run? And I think certainly human resources plays a crucial role, in managing that function, in developing staff, and ensuring that human capital element of an organisation can operate at absolute maximum capacity and provide the best value where possible.
Most definitely. The course actually introduces approaches that help us to look at management, not just as do as I say, not just hierarchical structures. There's a number of companies that work with flat structures, for example, where all roles are considered to be equal, and there is different responsibilities, of course, at different levels within the organisation. But that concept of management and development of people as capital, the workforce, a workforce to be truly effective, we encourage the approach that we invest in training, we invest in development. Mentoring in the workplace is also introduced in this course. as a response to that need for developing that human capital. Organisations that invest in their people often have a much more stable. There's better interrelationships in the organisation. People feel valued. They feel listened to, and they invest themselves into their roles and into the organisation, and become very passionate about what they do. And these are important things that we need to take with us from our learning into the workplace, is how to actually implement those things and how to develop those things. So investment in people is very, very important.
So certainly some of the strategic outcomes and benefits that come from developing and implementing human resources personnel and activities is crucial to success. But let's dive a little bit deeper and I suppose get a little bit granular and have a look at some of the day-to-day activities that would be involved in the human resources role, which we've certainly got up in front of us here. Mm-hmm. And also, look, something which is very exciting and something which I'd really like you to talk to is the job outlook for human resource managers. Now, it's expected that roles for HR managers are expected to grow 15.5% over the next 5 years, with an average salary of, certainly well into the six figures. Now, they're mind-blowing numbers, certainly when you look at, employment prospects and employment growth as a whole.
Look, we know industry and work is changing, and we know that with the advent of different technologies, that industry sectors are changing. But all industries need people to operate. They need people to operate those new systems. They need people to manage those new systems, and we always need people to manage the people to manage those systems. With the way the world of work is changing, human resource management is becoming more and more important, and human capital development is becoming more and more important. We've got one of the, I believe it's one of the highest growth areas. I need to check that, but I do believe that it's one of the highest growth areas as far as employment opportunities are concerned in Australia. That isn't directly related to a technical role. And as you've identified here, 15.5% over 5 years is a considerable opportunity for anybody completing the course to be able to obtain employment at the end of the course. The roles themselves, as you've identified here, will often comprise a lot of different activities. So recruitment is incredibly important. We recruit people to undertake tasks to achieve our strategic goals. And it's how we actually go about recruiting those people. And in a current job market or a current labour market, there's many, many different ways of recruiting people. And we also need to look at recruitment processes and how we go about recruiting people in a different world of work, where we've got much higher incidence of how we utilise technology in our roles. We use Microsoft Teams a lot here at Mentor Education, and we use it in a lot of different ways. It's used for conversations between staff members. It's used as a chat function. We utilise the chat function. How do we manage those things as far as the communication policy is concerned with the workforce? We need to actually take our newer technology and incorporate it into our human resources processes and policies and procedures. So developing and implementing performance management systems. Performance is measured in different ways in different industries, different organisations. KPIs, for example, when we develop key performance indicators, we now also have to take into account a deeper level of knowledge with technology and how we actually implement that. How do we manage those KPIs? How do we achieve reporting on them? So this is something else that we look at in the course. Occupational health and safety programs, for example, ergonomics, where we have remote workers. How do we establish whether the working environment for a remote worker is a safe working environment? What supports can we put in place for people when they're working remotely and we know that people experience feelings and senses of isolation? We know that certain people are suited to work remotely. How do we identify those people in our recruitment? So a lot of these things are what we do in as a HR manager or as a HR worker, or in a more senior HR role, because we have to incorporate all of those things in our strategic planning as well. So I think it's fair to say that as we've constructed the course and we've designed the course, that we've taken into account all of those changes in industry and changes in the way we work and changes in our work environments. So there is a very, very, concentrated approach for the course, not just to be about how we hire somebody, but also the long-term approach and the wider approaches in a business context.
And I think what's really interesting here is that it does have a vast amount of growth, but it falls outside that STEM field, which we define as science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, so there really is that human element. And there's a final point there, and it's train and advise other managers in personnel and workplace relation matters. So not just dealing directly with the employees, but also, senior management and the executive board, and providing advice on how they can manage their personnel in turn. And obviously having some expertise in that, people element, I suppose, is the best way to describe it.
Most definitely. Look, every organisation is made up of people, and people at different levels. And I think as much as we say that this course isn't about STEM, really it's about recruiting the people to undertake those STEM roles and have that capacity within the organisation, because a lot of organisations are looking at how they can incorporate that knowledge and that skill into the roles in people's day-to-day working environments. Because we have such change happening with the advent of technology and the way people are working, and that deeper requirement for cognitive ability and emotional intelligence, maturity, I should say, when we're working in teams. The course itself actually supports all of those things, because the human resources role is often the role that ensures that capacity exists in an organisation. Excellent.
Now, let's do a bit of a dive now. I mean, having covered the human resources function, the role, what's going on out there in industry, the sort of impact that it can have, how do we go about delivering, I suppose, the skills, skills, qualifications, and of course, knowledge for people to go out there and, actively get involved? I mean, what is the learning material?
So the learning material is comprised of online learning modules that are supported with additional reading material. There's a lot of opportunity for self-directed research. So students have the opportunity to develop deeper knowledge in the area of industry that is relevant to where they want to work or where they are working. There's also forums available for students to be able to share their experiences and explore things as well. And this course is scheduled lectures that relate to each unit, and so there's a deep dive into the actual topic in a lecture series that's available to students to attend live, and excuse me, and they're interactive live forums with the lecturer, and they have the opportunity to explore the topic, ask deeper questions, and excuse me, and they happen regularly. And the course itself is actually delivered by distance learning, so it's students have access to the learning management system where they complete their assessments as part of the learning management system.
Now, talking to the learning management system or the online learning experience as a whole, I'm going to pass on over to you, Danielle, before we come back to Iona. And you've been involved in online learning for some time and also remote learning. What are some of the takeaways that you've had from the experience?
Absolutely, thanks James. With the mentor courses specifically, they are truly self-paced, so people aren't going to be restricted or held up or being rushed through the course either, because you do have the total course duration to get all of the coursework done. So you can really work through it in a pace that suits you to make sure that you can absorb the information and actually learn, rather than just trying to get things done quickly and submit the assessment themselves. Absolutely.
And how's that flexibility with the online learning worked for you? I mean, do you find that you struggle with, say, sticking to deadlines, having a process in place, things like that? Or, I mean, how do you work around the flexibility, and what are some, I suppose, some of the shortfalls, but more importantly, some of the benefits that you could highlight as well?
For sure. There is certainly the opportunity to study when it suits. So for myself, I'm a morning bird, so I'm going to get up and do a few hours study before work in the morning. When traveling, you can get some stuff started on public transport and really fall into a rhythm that works for you. Having the lectures running so regularly, it's another prompt to make sure that you've done enough work that week before the lecture. So it's just another reminder to say, oh, need to get in and get that done. But if there is a week where study can't happen, then that's okay. You make up for it the following week. But sticking to routine and schedule is really important. Finding what works for you as a student and sticking to that is really important. And then, of course, having the team there to help if you are stuck with anything is just, yeah, such a great benefit.
Excellent. Now, going back to you, Iona, if you could talk to us a little bit about perhaps some of the technology and specific requirements for students to have if they do intend on embracing the online learning experience.
Well, I don't mean to be simplistic, but an internet connection is great. Pretty obviously, it's just being funny. A somewhere comfortable to study is very important in a quiet environment, and a computer that and a laptop or a tablet that it is connected to the internet or connected to Wi-Fi, or they can connect to Wi-Fi, because the majority of the learning occurs in an online environment. It's important for it to be portable, and we support that. The learning management system is accessible through their desktop and through their browser, and as other lectures for this course.
Excellent. Now, a question which is important to students just about anywhere, or any prospective students looking at taking on a course, is that of assessment, Iona. Now, we've got quite an extensive list here, and it can look a little bit intimidating at first look, but certainly the Advanced Diploma of Business, which specialises in human resources, will incorporate some, if not all of these, but not all at the same time. Is that correct?
Oh, most definitely not. It's a scary looking list when we put it up on a slide, James, a very, very scary list. Now, each unit is learning and assessment shouldn't be a scary thing. It's an assessment is a chance for a student to demonstrate to us that they've learned all about this and that it's made a difference to them. And often we find that students get very excited with an assessment task, and they'll actually provide us with more than we ever expected, which is wonderful. So all of these assessment tasks are actually mixed up across the course. So, for example, I'll use a unit as an example. So we'll talk about the diversity unit. So in the diversity unit, for example, there is a multiple choice quiz. There is a case study, but as part of that case study, the student actually creates a diversity plan for an organisation. And then there's some self-reflection exercises about their experience of developing the diversity plan and how it made a difference to them. In the self-directed learning activities for that unit, there's 3 case studies, and they all relate to organisations such as Google or Telstra, or current case studies and current industry attitudes, experiences, environments, and so on and so forth. The portfolio is usually it's in one other unit where a student will create a portfolio of documents, which the student can then actually utilise as they're applying for positions to actually demonstrate that they can do this. And often that actually assists the student because they can demonstrate to a prospective employer that they can complete something like a workforce plan. So no, it all doesn't happen in one. And in this course, there is no practical demonstration. So a lot of the assessment is case study and scenario based, and where possible, throughout the course we provide as much support and assistance, examples as we possibly can, so students can complete their assessments.
Yeah, if I'm currently, say, in an entry-level HR role, or it's something that I'm looking at moving on and over into, say, moving sideways in an organisation, with some of these assessment pieces, could I build them specifically to my business, knowing that they were going to be implemented in my own workplace?
So with approval from the workplace, the student can actually utilise their workplace experiences as examples in their assessments. But we always suggest, of course, that a student ensures that they discuss it with their workplace. But what we do suggest is that if a student is actually in a role like that and they are actually wanting to undertake those tasks, of course we'll support them to do that. If they're not in a workplace, we provide an alternative for the student. So yes, quite often in an assessment, it can be an either or, and that supports both students that are developing knowledge of a new topic, as well as students that actually have that foundational knowledge, so they can apply it to their current work role. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. And the duration of the course. Now, we've got here a 12 to 18 month period at around about 500 hours. Now, that can be done full-time, part-time. What sort of an impact does that have on our 12 to 18 month period?
Depending on the number of hours that a student commits to their study, the course is 500 hours in total. We find a lot of students move through it at their own pace, and some will finish earlier than others. Because the course is delivered as what's referred to as a sequenced course, so students can move. They literally move from one unit to the next unit to the next unit. We find some students complete it in less than 12 months, and some students take the full 18 months to complete it. So we suggest that a student commits around, in this course, 15 to 20 hours a week in study. So, and we find that a lot of the students in this course are already employed. So that level of commitment is achievable for somebody who is employed, who's building on, sort of their foundational skills or wanting to move sideways. So what we attempt to do is ensure that it is achievable. Excuse me, but students can take up to 18 months. If a student begins the course and they're studying full-time and their circumstances change and they want to change to part-time study, all they need to do is let us know. Okay, excellent.
Now, Danielle, I'm going to hand back on over to you. You work with students I suppose, in a number of different ways, and certainly in a one-on-one capacity with educational advice and things like that. Talk to us a little bit about student support and what sort of expectations people should have.
Absolutely. Thanks, James. We do ensure that students do never feel lost or stuck, and everybody will always know who to contact if they need help. The education advisor is sometimes a point of contact for the life of the enrolment, but we do have the student support team, and they really are the experts at the learning management system. If you need a walkthrough on the system, you forgot your password, anything of that nature, they are there to help. And there's usually somebody ready to speak on the phone if you just pick up the phone and give us a call. There's also the dedicated trainers as well, who will be doing your lectures, as well as available on the phone for a call for assistance if you do get stuck outside of the lectures. So there is always somebody there to help. And when you enrol, you get access to all of their details so that you can just give us a call, normal business hours, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5.
And that's Melbourne, Sydney business hours, of course? Excellent. Now, I'm going to keep you with us, Danielle, as we can talk to, I suppose, a number of the frequently asked questions that come through from our students.
Yeah, absolutely. They really are sort of the frequently asked questions. Speaking with people about this course quite regularly, these are the things that were asked. So we'll go through. The top one there is about government funding. The short answer to that question is no, we don't have government funding. To elaborate on that, though, we do have a lot of students tell us that this course actually works out to be a less cost than those that are funded. We have some great discounts running at the moment and some really flexible payment plans as well, which I guess leads into the next question. So there is a lot of flexibility with payment of the course, and the best thing to do is just chat with an education advisor about your specific needs and what it is that you can afford. We'll see if we can make that work for you. Moving on to when you start. Because it is flexible online learning, you can enrol when you're ready. There's no set intake days or particular months of the year. You can enrol and get started generally within 24 hours or the next business day. So it is pretty quick, and it's when you're ready. So it's without pressure or deadlines to get started. Is it all included? Yes, it is. So we're very upfront about everything that we do here at Mentor Education. There's no hidden fees for assessments or to get your qualification at the end. What you pay for the course is what you pay for the course. Sorry, James. Yep.
I was going to say, yeah, so, and the different study options that we have. So absolutely.
Yeah, there are a few study options. So we would always recommend that people take our sort of mid-level study option, which includes the lectures that happen. So that gives you access to the live lectures and the recordings that come through for those as well. They're incredibly valuable, and 99% of our students are going to need those. We do, however, have an option to opt out of those. That option would really only be suitable for those with extensive industry experience who are also very familiar with online learning that are not going to attend them anyway. They can opt out of those lectures. As I said, 99% of students are going to need that support and the information that comes through from them. Moving on to the next one there, nationally recognised. It certainly is, yes. So quick Google search of the course code will show you that it is the latest up-to-date training package, which is nationally accredited through ASQA, the governing body there. So absolutely.
And then prerequisites, Danielle. Do I need to have finished any courses before I'm eligible to enrol, or?
You do not. So the education advisors will have a chat with you about this if this course is the most appropriate for your goals, but there are no formal prerequisites. You don't have to have studied anything in the past. We do need at least a year level 10 for the language literacy and numeracy skills, but that's really it. There are no formal prerequisites. We do need students to be over the age of 18 years. Chat with us if you're not. We do have other course options for you.
Okay, great. And then I think the one about how long people usually take to finish, we covered well and truly with Iona a little bit earlier on. Now, just before we close off, we've had a couple of questions come in, and I suppose either of you could answer this. Are there any additional fees for textbooks?
Would you like to take that question, Danielle? It flows on to what you were saying a moment ago.
Yeah, absolutely. So no, there are no additional costs. Everything is provided to you digitally, so we're not printing and sending you anything, so it just keeps those fees as low as we possibly can, but there is no additional cost for it. Truly is everything you need is provided with your enrolment cost. Okay,
great. And one more question, just a little bit more information on payment plans. Are they weekly or monthly?
Monthly. We do generally do a monthly payment split evenly over up to sort of 10 months. Don't like to go too much longer because the payment plan needs to finish before you finish your course, and we do have some speedy students that will work through it. But chat with an education advisor. We'll talk with you about what suits you. They can always be paid off sooner if you don't want to be worrying about it. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, great.
Now, if we wanted more information on this course or anything else that we offer, where's the best place for us to go?
Yeah, so our website's going to be a great start, and that's www.mentor.edu.au, or you can pick up the phone and give us a call. The number's online, but it is 1300 306 146. If you press option 1, you'll get straight through to an education advisor who'll be ready to have a chat with you about it.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Danielle.
James.
Thank you, Iona. Now, any final comments before we close off today?
Please feel free to contact Danielle or any one of her team. Send through an email inquiry, and we hope to hear from you. Back to you, James.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Well, everybody who tuned in today, thank you very much for attending. We hope you found our insights into the Advanced Diploma of Business specialising in human resources valuable. As Danielle said, for any more information, head on over to mentor.edu.au, leave your information and we'll arrange for a team member to get in touch with you. Thanks again.